I'm Lavon. I'm an alcoholic. And where's Kurt? Kurt, where are you? Thanks a lot for getting me into this. I almost escaped, and then he laid the big guilt trip on me, and I said, all right. I brought my hazmat suit, you know. I'm old. I don't want to get COVID-19 or any other nasty thing, but you guys are young. I'm looking around the room. I said, Jesus Christ, I think most of these people are younger than the years I've been sober. I got sober in October 10th, 1981. And if I stay sober until October 10th, I'll be 39 years old. I don't want anybody hurting themselves trying to do the math. I got the front row people here that if they get out of hand, just throw them out. They're great friends of mine, and I think you got to be. Christy has got to have heard me talk, I don't know, a half a dozen times. I said, Jesus Christ, you know, you've heard me talk. How many times? He goes, well, it's been a while now. And I'm like, okay. So I appreciate her support. And I appreciate all three of those people over there an awful lot. I brought something here I blew up. This is not a speech I wrote. This is something I'm going to read out of the big book for you. So I just put it on a page here. And you've heard it probably over and over, or at least a few times. But it's the meat of what I needed to hear. Most emphatically, we wish to say that any alcoholic capable of honesty facing his problems in the light of our experience can recover, provided he does not close his mind to all spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. We find that no one need have difficulty with the spirituality of the program. Willingness, honesty, and open-mindedness are the essentials of recovery, but these are indispensable. Now, my sponsor told me very early on, she said, now I want you to go to these meetings and I want you to take the pearls and leave the bullshit. Now, I thought she thought I knew the difference. What she was trying to do is keep my seat, my ass in the seat. And so she also pointed out this last paragraph. There is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. A man named Herbert Spencer wrote that. So, I beg of you, if you don't hear it from me, try to hear it from somebody. Let's see. Where do I begin? I guess the only important thing that happened that I need to tell you about before I got sober, or before I started drinking, pardon me. The only thing that happened before I started drinking that you need to know about is that I was a Baptist. I was a fine Baptist like Mark over there. And, you know, from the time I was a small child, I was rejecting everything I heard in these churches. And, you know, I would go to church and I would be on the edge of my seat. I mean, that guy in the Midwest, when I was a kid, many, many years ago, that guy was scary as hell. I mean, he was up there and he would say, start out, you know, he would be going to town and pretty soon he'd say, Jesus is coming. Are you ready? And I would think, no, not today. Not today. I'm not ready. No. And I was just sure from everything that guy told me that I was going to burn in hell. I was just pretty damn sure. Now, what could I have done? I was just a little kid. But at the same time I'm thinking that, I'm thinking, this is bullshit. Noah swallowed what? A whale what? I mean, you know, and I just rejected. would sit there and I'd watch my cousins. You know, I had a couple of cousins in the same church, and they'd be over there and they'd be coloring. And I would think, don't you know Jesus is coming? Pay attention, you know. I mean, I had a warped sense right from the beginning. I was a member of a little group they had called Sunbeams for Jesus. I thought, if someone finds out at school that I'm a Sunbeam for Jesus, I'm just going to die. You know, I thought that would be the most embarrassing thing that could possibly happen to a human being. And while I'm down there with Sunbeams for Jesus, in Sunday school, we're singing, Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. And then we go upstairs, and the guy upstairs is yelling, hell, fire, and brimstone. You know, it was confusing. So I didn't do real well with God. At about 15, I rejected the whole idea. I refused to go to church. My parents had good sense and said, okie dokie. And they would go every Wednesday to prayer meeting, every Sunday to Sunday school and church. And I was finally off the hook. And I figured my best chance with this God was if I didn't bother him, maybe he wouldn't bother me. So I went on my way. I lived in a small town, 2,000 people. Everybody knew what you were doing. My father was a deacon in the church, and I had to pretty well toe the line. I came here, they say that the root of our problem is selfishness and self-centeredness. And I will tell you that because I was an only child and an alcoholic, I came in here just a wee bit making that true. I was, as my sponsor put it, the most self-centered person she had ever met. I thought that was ridiculous because I thought I was a very giving, generous person. And more shall be revealed, they said. And it was. I started, like I said, I avoided the drinking crowds. You know, I'd go once in a while to a beer party, but I didn't drink. Because I didn't want to lose my car and, you know, all that shit. So I didn't know anything about drinking. At 18, I graduated from high school and went to Los Angeles, right straight from this town of 2,000 people. And I mean, my eyes were wide open. Right away, I'm starting to go to the sorority rushes and the frat parties. And every place I went, people were drinking. And I, without hesitation, joined in. And right from the gate, I didn't know what it was about this shit, but I just loved it. I absolutely loved to drink. I could tell you that I hear a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous say, well, I just drank for the effect. Well, I did too, but I'll tell you this much. I loved the taste, the smell. I loved everything about alcohol. I even liked the way the bottles were. You know, I can go into a place now where they got a bar and my eyes right away, I'm looking at all the bottles, how pretty they are. So, in college, like I said, was where I started drinking. I held it together fairly well. Then my drinking began to start to get to me there, you know, toward the last. And I did graduate. I have a Bachelor of Business Administration, and I'll tell you, it's not that hard. You just have to cheat. You cheat and you charm and you do everything you have to do. And so I got that degree. And then I went out. Well, I was already working at this, you know. I worked at one job in Beverly Hills, and I worked in another place called, they make parachute jump things or some shit. Anyway, I was starting to have problems, and 8 o'clock is awful early in the morning to have to go into work. And their showtime and my showtime did not match up, because the bars close at 2 o'clock in the morning, so you can't possibly really get to bed until, I don't know, 3, whatever time it was. I don't know. I was always in a blackout, so I don't know what time I went to bed. And I began to get fired from jobs because, like I said, I couldn't make it. I mean, I just couldn't make it. And I could only lie just so long, you know, and then pretty soon they get a little suspicious And they really don't even care whether you're drinking or not. They just know that you're not there. So if you're not there, you can't do the job. And so I knew that was just because I was a day person. I mean, not night person. I just couldn't do those day hours. And as time went on, I got this job, and it was what I would call an alcoholic dream job. I could go into work anytime I wanted, as long as I could get there before 2 o'clock in the afternoon and get my hours in. I was working, by this time I was working, I worked my way into data processing. And if they got lucky, I could put in a really good day once a week. And but in those days, we were kind of, nobody knew anything about computers. So when you said, I'm a computer programmer, or I'm a data processing manager, or any of those things, everybody thought, oh, fucking genius, Well, we all know that ain't right. But none of us fessed up until it was completely known. So anyway, I started finding the bars really about, the bars I wanted to be in. When I was about 21, I guess it was, I discovered the gay bars. And oh my God, Los Angeles has got a whole bunch of bars I like. And I had a good time. I mean, I loved it. I mean, I played on the softball leagues, and I went there, to all the, the bars where we could dance. I thought I could dance when I drank. But they assured me the next day that I could not. But I kept doing it when I was drunk. And I had a really good time, playing the pool tournaments and, meeting all these women. And I just was going for it. And no matter what little unfortunate incidents happened, the price was always worth paying to me. And I got along to a point where I thought, well, I'm going to go back and get my master's degree. Well, I went back, and I've been drinking for a few years at that time, And I found out that I couldn't go to the bars, and I wasn't smart enough even to cheat enough, and that I flunked out. I got all Fs the first term. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what the, So things had changed, but I was sure. I understood why. I mean, by this time, I was on my third wife, or whatever you want to call her. Third. By the way, I, for one, seriously, always take a little time in my talk to thank the heterosexuals for not letting us get married. Because, believe me, I could not afford the alimony. I mean, 8 wives is just too many. So anyway, where was I? Let's see. So anyway, I flunked out of graduate school. And like I said, I really did understand why. It was because of this girlfriend, man. She always wanted to go to the bars like I didn't, right? But I somehow, looking back, I know that I could deny my disease. I could deny my disease no matter what evidence put in front of me. And I knew that people who didn't drink were boring-ass people. I mean, aren't they? Jesus. And I'm like, when they would say, Lavon, why do you drink so much? I would be thinking, why don't you? You need a drink, And I wasn't one of those that hid liquor. I mean, people talk to me about my drinking, and I would say, well, Humphrey Bogart, he's an old-time actor. John Huston, he's even an older producer and director. I would say, Humphrey Bogart, John Huston, and I drink. And they would look at me like, what? What the fuck does that mean? Well, the truth of the matter was that it shut them up, so I kept using it when they would tell me that. But the last 10 years of my drinking for sure, I know I never went to a grocery store or a liquor store or anything that I didn't buy a bottle. I just kept bottles rolling into my house. I didn't really want to know how much I drank. I had decanters. I'd fill decanters up. I'd have bottles under my bar. And so, they couldn't keep up either. Even the women that I lived with couldn't keep up. Let's see. It's been a while since I had a drink. I got to think here for a second. It's been a while since I talked. I had a lot of, it's sort of like this. My best story will never be told because I don't remember it. And the reason I know I don't remember it because I was in a blackout most of the time. But I did have a few things happen that brought me to realize how bad it really was. And that was that people, I seemed to have to keep changing friends. And I would walk into a bar, and I would be very happy, ready to have a good time, and all of a sudden the bartender would say, out, 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 right now. I don't know what I did. But there are plenty of bars in L.A. I don't need you. And so I kept going like that, and I kept going through lovers and friends and family and, my poor parents. See, I was raised in a home where nobody drank. Baptist, right? We don't drink. Anyway, so I just would keep moving forward because to me the thought of not drinking just wasn't anywhere on my radar. And things would happen. I mean, you wreck a few cars, you get in fights. I remember this one night, I went out and I was going to have a good time with partner number 4. And we were drinking tequila, shots, and then we got into an argument and I left. And I went to this other bar. And I was in that bar and I was having a conversation with my friend Lightning. Lightning they called her that because she walked around with like this with her neck. That's the way she walked. So we called her Lightning. Now, Lightning and I were having an intellectual conversation about I don't know what. And this bartender came over and started interrupting us. And, she was one of these big old dykes with chains hanging and all that shit, And I said, nobody asked you to come over here and talk. I said, get out of here. So it was about closing time, and she came over and said something else, and I said something else, and she said, would you like to step outside? And I said, yes, I would. Now, I'm going to straighten your ass out. That's my thinking. We got outside, and something went wrong. I couldn't lift my hands. I remember I was trying so hard, and I could not lift my hands. And she hit me in the eye, about right there, and I went sprawling, spread eagle on the ground. Next morning, I went to work. People said, what happened to your eye? And I said, I got in a fight, or I got punched in the eye or something. I told them the truth, and they would go, ho, 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 and that was the end of that. But it was bothering me. This bitch was bothering me because I had to get even with her. People like that, you got to get even with them. You can't let them get away with that shit. It was my job. So I'm thinking about it. And she was big. I knew I couldn't kick her ass. I knew that for sure. And my girlfriend came home. And she says, oh, guess what? The worst thing happened. I said, what happened? I don't remember this woman's name, but we'll call her Dyke. Dyke OD'd. And I'm thinking, Dyke OD'd? This is fabulous. I don't have to get even with her anymore, But this is the way my brain worked. I was vindictive. I was self-centered. And I ran my whole life like that. Because I could. And I was the luckiest son of a bitch alive. I mean, I've wrecked cars. I had one guy, I just thank God. I don't know how, I have no answers for why such horrendous things happen to some people and not to other people. But I'm telling you, you're looking at one lucky person. I had a guy that I drank with, and when I would get drunk, I tried to kill him. 3 times I chased him with my car, and he was on foot. And we were going over lawns and curbs, and he is screaming bloody murder, trying to get between cars where I can't get to him. My girlfriend's yelling at me and saying, "You're going to kill him, you're going to kill him." And I said, "That's what I'm trying to do." And the next time I called him, he answered the phone. I said, "Hi, Dale, it's Lavon. You want to go out?" And he goes, "Lavon, don't call me. Don't come over here." He said, "I don't want to ever see you again." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you're trying to kill me." So, I'm just trying to give you a couple of examples of how I had to find new friends quite frequently. I was told I was a mean drunk. And I know that there were times, here's what I know about drinking. When you drink, or when I drink, I am sick and insane. And I do things I would not do if I did not drink. I had an incident with this girlfriend, and she was always starting to fight, slapping me or doing some shit. And finally I got tired of her. And so I've been leaving her, and I'm packing my stuff. And she reaches and she grabs me by the back of the head, and she cracks it on this towel thing, closet. Man, I was seeing stars. And I turned around and I just started beating the shit out of her. I had her down on the floor, and something happened. I understand manslaughter. I understand it, not because I did it, but because I know I went right out of my mind. I did not have anything conscious except whatever it was she was saying that was making me mad. I kept saying, "Say it again, bitch," and I'd bang her head on the floor. And she would say it again. She was, I don't know, she just loved to get beat up. And that was just the whole pattern with us, and I'm going to shorten that story and tell you that she had to have surgery, that she had permanent damage. She had to walk with a cane for the rest of her life because of her equilibrium being off. I can't tell you I felt much about that until I had been in AA for a while. Anyway, life rolled on. I got to get out of the drunk log here. The way I'm going to do that is to tell you that I went out for my birthday one night. And there were 4 of us. And this crazy Al-Anon that invited me, she lived with me. She knew I was an alcoholic. She let me drive. Now that's an Al-Anon. She needs a program. So we're driving, we came out of the bar, and they kept begging me to go, because this woman had a colostomy. They said, "She's got to go. We've got to go." So finally, being a big-hearted person, I guess I got up and we went out, and they insisted that somebody else should drive, and so I let them drive. But then she jerked the car a few times. I had one of those Mustangs, 4 on the floor. It's a 450. I mean, that sumbitch would really go. So anyway, she jerked that around, and I just reached over, grabbed the keys, turned it off, pushed her out of the car somehow or other, knocked her out of the seat, got in the seat. They all bailed. I took off down. I was on Robertson Boulevard in Beverly Hills, for anybody that knows that street. And that's a busy street. So I peeled out of there. I'm going down lickety-split down. And now what I'm telling you about all this, I know after they told me the next day. I don't remember any of this. I don't remember. But I knew when I woke up the next morning, because my hand was hurting bad. And I said, "Oh, I punched somebody." I didn't know which one of the 4 I punched, but I knew I'd hit somebody. So the interesting thing that happened to me that morning is I'd had just as bad hangovers, over and over and over and over. I'm a daily drinker by then. I'm a daily drunk. Anyway, I go to the bathroom, and I see myself in the mirror. There's like these two black holes looking out of my eyes. And I thought, where's Lavon? My brain literally said that to me. Where is Lavon? Because she ain't in there. That really shook me up. I don't know why. Really got to me, you know. And I'd been to AA in my mid-20s with two, one a lover and the other my best friend, both terrible drunks. Couldn't hold a job, couldn't do shit, you know. So I'm with them and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the people sharing in the meeting. And it didn't take me very long till my brain was saying, you're an alcoholic. You are an alcoholic. Now, I didn't really understand what that meant. See, we think we know what that means, but I didn't really. I didn't understand it was a progressive disease. I didn't understand that it was just going to keep getting worse and worse, you know. So I went out and drank another 10 years. So this time, when I had this awakening, I called that friend who now had 6 years of sobriety in Alcoholics Anonymous. And she came over, we're so enthusiastic, you know, we get a live one on the line, like, let me go save her, you know. Anyway, here she comes, right? And I'm vibrating. Now, in those days, they used to give people sometimes a shot, you know, so you wouldn't go into DTs. Not her. Her program was orange juice and honey. On a hangover. So she brought a book, she brought some tape, she wanted to take me to a meeting. No. I remember Alcoholics Anonymous, and I thought it was really good for you guys, but I'm not a joiner. So I did manage, because I had such resolve. I managed to stay sober with tapes and, I don't know, her talking in my ear or whatever. I stayed sober for a couple months. But then my resolve began to sort of drift away, and I got to drinking again. And what really got me into Alcoholics Anonymous is kind of weird, probably wouldn't work for any of you, but I woke up in a sheet of blood. I mean, I literally slid out of bed. And I thought, oh my God, I've killed someone. And then I thought, no, it's more serious than that. You're alone. You've killed yourself. And then I did get out of bed. I was hemorrhaging. I wasn't in touch with my body. When you drink like I drank, you don't know what the hell's going on with your body. So I didn't have anybody to call. I'd kind of run out of people temporarily, I thought. I'm drinking alone. I'm not going to the bars anymore, of course. So I called this same woman again. She came over, and I'm freaked out. So she took me to the doctor. The doctor examined me. The doctor was a woman. And she takes my hand and she makes me grab my abdomen. And she says, "Didn't you know you had this?" I wanted to say, "No, I didn't, lady." But I didn't. And turned out I had big fibroid tumors, 3 of them, lodged together, about the size of grapefruits. And they were finally pressing against something that was making me hemorrhage. So, long story short, again, I wound up recovering at this woman's house. And there ain't no booze to drink there. And little by little, I'm kind of, and by the way, I was in the hospital 5 days, so that was great. I got to detox on, Percocet and whatever other shit they had. And then I got out for a while, so I kind of tapered there. So then one morning I woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I reached up and I grabbed this book off her shelf, and it was called "I'll Quit Tomorrow." And I started reading this book, and I'm looking for myself, and I found myself in chronic alcoholism. All the symptoms, all the things that I was doing and things that were happening to me. That moment of clarity, again, that moment of clarity that says it's never, ever, ever going to be a good drunk again. That's the truth. If you're sitting in this room, that's probably true, if you think about it. If it keeps getting worse and worse and worse, then you got to think, I think I've had the last good time I'm going to have. I told her I wanted to go to AA meeting at noon with her. She was just delighted. She was so cheerful. So we went to the meeting. I'm not cheerful, but I'm desperate. Because at this point I'm thinking, I cannot start drinking again. And there were all these people in the room. I really wasn't impressed, I can tell you. The only thing they had going for themselves, they sounded like they might be honest, might be telling the truth about some things. But I didn't like much of anybody. And I didn't want anybody touching me. I don't want anybody hugging me. If I went to a meeting that had a greeter on the door, I left. I did not come in. That's the truth. I was that, leave me alone. But this sponsor, I asked her to sponsor me, this woman, and I loved her. And she did so much for me. I mean, so much. I don't think without a good guide, I would have ever interpreted the steps correctly. They look like they might be simple, but they're not. I mean, they're simple, but I had a way of misunderstanding things. I mean, look what I did with God. I don't hear things right. And I know that as together as I thought I was, I look back now and I know how crazy I was. The last relationship I was in, before I got sober, I was in it for 5 years. The woman was a hooker. I loved her dearly. I had the best relationship I'd ever had because she had money. A good Baptist is not going to have a 5-year relationship with a hooker, So, like I said, the chemicals that we put into our body when we're alcoholics, drug addicts, whatever the hell you want to label yourself, if you're killing yourself with some magical drug, it'll kill you. Either we get you or you get to go to heaven. I don't know which. But it's not a bad trip. I really liked. How am I doing on time? 10 minutes? My God, I haven't even gotten sober yet. Hardly. Well, I am sober though. So I want to tell you that. I want to tell you the end, and if I got a couple more minutes, I'll tell you something else. But the end is that I did stay sober from that date on. I had terrible anxiety attacks the first year. They didn't have treatment centers because there was no money in it. There were halfway houses that people donated to, and you went to stay in them if you had to do that. The anxiety attacks were, oh my God. I got a job in my 10th month of sobriety. I was having these anxiety attacks so bad, I would go in the bathroom. I'd be in there for 20, 30 minutes, Somebody come in, I'd just put my feet up, I didn't know what the hell anybody was talking about. I went on this job interview because this guy wouldn't leave me alone that knew me. He said, go down to Hughes Helicopter and put an application in. I'm like, and he wouldn't leave me alone. Finally he called me up one day. He said, I made an appointment for you. I thought, you made an appointment? He said, yeah, an interview. He told me where to go, what time, what day. I said, fine, I got to get this monkey off my back. Because I was pretty sure at that time I was dying. I had lumps in my breast, and I thought, don't you know I'm dying? I don't need a job, But people won't leave you alone, And when you're an alcoholic, you like to exaggerate everything. I still do. I got my COVID-19 kit right there in the corner, Hear that little cough? Could be. Anyway, I had this interview, and this woman started asking me a lot of questions on this thing. She had 2 pages. And finally, after she got down to near the bottom of the first page, she'd say, have you had experience in a CICS environment? And I said, well, no. And she said, do you know IDMS? And I said, well, no. Finally, she realized I didn't know anything, so she pushed the sheets over to the side. She said, well, tell me what you have done. I'm an alcoholic. I spun her a bedtime story, I guess, because I left there thinking, good, I can go home and obsess about my health. And this bitch called me a few days later. She said, I thought, well, this is the complimentary. You didn't get the job. Instead, she says, I wanted to call you because I want you to know that I want to hire you. But HR has to make the offer, and they're really behind. They're behind about a week and a half. And I thought, who is this? This must be some kind of prank, you know. It wasn't a prank. They hired me, Hughes Helicopter. So I went to work for them. I didn't know what the hell. I'd go to meetings. I didn't know what they were talking about. You know, they were using a lot of acronyms, you know. I had never worked in manufacturing before. So I'm listening to all this stuff. I didn't know anything. Somehow, it just kept going along. And then one day, let's see. I did have an affair with my boss. That helped. Took a lot of pressure off. And she was married, you know. So that was kind of tricky. But we had a pretty good affair for about 9 months. And my sponsor was the kind of sponsor that never said, don't get in a relationship in your first year. She'd just say, whatever blows your skirts up. Now, that ain't right. I'll tell you why it ain't right. I learned that I was a sick person looking back. Now, if any of you think maybe you might be sick, I will tell you that sick attracts sick. It does not it will never attract the love of your life. The one. It will only attract sick. So, I needed to get well. And I haven't made it yet, but I'm still, you know, I'm working on it. I'm getting better all the time. So, what happened, the reason that job was, I didn't know why I got the job. And now today I think it was because McDonnell Douglas bought the company, and in 1986 they moved to Mesa, Arizona. And my parents lived up in Payson, and my dad was very ill shortly after I arrived. It was like the timing was. And my mother had never worked a day in her life, didn't even know how to balance a checkbook. And I don't know why my dad couldn't teach her. He taught me all that stuff. But anyway, I think that's why I came to Arizona. I don't know, but there's got to be some goofy reason why I got the job. I made it for a ways, and all of a sudden, my boss comes in and says, "I'm leaving the company. I'm moving up north." And I'm like, "What?" You know. She says, and because her boss, that was an empty chair at the time, she was reporting directly to the director. She said, "The director thinks I should make you the manager." And I'm like, "What?" You know, I'm like, "You must be." I said, "No, Mary Ann." I said, He said, "He wants you. He saw all this good stuff. He saw that you had a master's degree," which I neglected to say. When I got sober, I went right back to school. I got my master's degree. You know, this is a program, you can succeed with this program. I don't know what your definition of success is, but whatever it is, you can succeed in this program. Nothing can stop you. I mean, I got sponsees that got felonies up their ass that, you know, one of them's a big real estate tycoon, and, you know, I could point to a lawyer, a doctor. We got half the lawyers in this town, maybe more than that, are drunks, by the way. They're sober, that's all. You just don't notice them. So you can do whatever you want to do in this program. Or if you want to just sit around and say, "I just want to be spiritual," you can do that too. You know, you'll still be a happier person. There's so much strength in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's like, I feel the power, you know, like it's like my friends over here. I love them. You know, they're just great friends. They're so insane. It's like they'll do anything for me. I don't get it. You know, I mean, I'm the person nobody wanted to be friends with. And I've got people today in my life that love me. And you know, I was able to clean up a lot of wreckage. I found out a lot of my insanity, like that more shall be revealed bit. I'm telling you, When I made amends to people, I began to find out things about myself. I'll tell you one of them. I went to make amends to the hooker. I thought I owe this woman amends. She said, no, you don't owe me amends. She said, I just want to know one thing. I said, what is that? She said, after the bars closed and you took me home and dumped me off, where did you go? And I said, what? I said, when did I do this? She said, all the time. I said, all the time? Ladies and gentlemen, I do not know who I was with, what I was doing, where I was. I don't know about you, but that is not a comfortable feeling when you realize that you've turned your life and your will over to the care of a God that is so powerful that it makes you do things you would never do, that it makes you into a class 1 idiot doing all of the things that you would never do if you were sober. Find that higher power. God bless you.